Welcome to this Grim Explainer. Come on up and join me for a second. We're looking down from this incredibly high, jagged peak in the Guthian Mountains. I'm a spirit of negation, you see, just a shadow with a kind of weary, knowing grin. Once upon a time, I was the catalyst who drove men to strive, to really push beyond their limits. But today? Well, today we're going to observe a very different kind of darkness. We're examining a literal masterpiece of human self-sabotage, and I'll be your guide on this dark travelogue, straight into the Valley of the Inkblot Demon.
Okay, let's dive into this. Just look at that valley down there. As a constructive catalyst, my whole purpose was always to destroy the old, simply to necessitate new creation and growth. But what we're observing today is a tragedy of a completely different nature. This is the domain of the Inkblot Demon. And the crazy thing is, it's a creature born not of my constructive mischief, but of humanity's own desperate attempts to cage its true nature.
Let's start by unpacking the philology of the living ink and the violence of character.
To truly wrap our heads around this demon, we first have to look at the actually violent meaning of the words you humans use to define your virtues. You speak of building character, like it's this noble refinement, but language rarely lies. The philology of the word character comes from the Greek root charasein, and get this, it doesn't mean to grow or to nurture. It literally means scraping, scratching, and cutting deeply. So, to the Inkblot Demon, building character is a literal act of philological violence. It's the brutal suppression of human instinct. It's this violent effort to carve rigid moral structures into the soul, treating it like it's nothing but a cold, dead slab of stone.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between traditional Goethean ideals and what this demonic entity actually represents. My own Goethean purpose, constructive negation, is all about clearing away the brush so the forest can grow, right? It's a vital catalyst for self-mastery. But the Inkblot Demon? It embodies terminal consumption. This is a terminal void. It doesn't destroy to create, it simply devours all form to feed an eternal, chaotic formlessness. It leaves absolutely no room for the future.
So, let's look at the first of our three dark parables, the stained sanctum.
Let's move to this first parable and see how this builds into absolute destruction. Down there in a dim cell, there's a meticulous monk. He views his soul as this pristine canvas, and he's trying to transcribe a word of purity. He completely believes he's exercising free will, but with every stroke of his quill, he's engaging in Sharasan, violently scraping the page. In reality, he's trapped in Das Nachschreiben, basically just copying dead scripts of ancestral guilt. He's scraping his virtues not from some divine inspiration, but from a totally stagnant reservoir of his own repressed vitality.
And here is the tragic irony of it all. For every rigid line of morality he carves out, a Tintenklecks, an inkblot, blooms. But this isn't just a stain on paper. It acts as a tinctura that literally acquires physical autonomy. The living ink rises right out of his repressed chaos as a writhing horror, a devouring architect commissioned by the monk's own denied willa, his denied will. And the tighter he grips that pen, the larger the demon grows.
Moving on to part 2, the parable of the Iron Citadel.
Let's pull back from the solitary monk and look at the macrocosm. Observe our second parable, set within a sovereign citadel that is built entirely on the foundation of objective morality. Here, the act of scraping is incredibly literal. The laws are carved into heavy stone. The knights defending this place are draped in heavy iron and these totally suffocating cloaks of dogma. So the crucial point is, they believe this massive, rigid weight is their shield. But it's not a shield at all. It's a feast. They're simply providing food for man's greatest internal enemy, the Nietzschean spirit of gravity.
Just watch as the Inkblot Demon descends upon them. It doesn't even need to breach the walls. It uses the suffocating vertical pressure of their own collective guilt. The sheer, massive weight of their dogma flattens the citadel. The demon acts as a physical predator, literally emptying the knights of their vital spirit. What remains isn't some catalyst for growth. It's a terminal dead end, a terrifying regression into absolute emptiness, leaving behind nothing but hollowed-out, decapitated armor.
Which brings us to our third and final act, the parable of the sculptor's dead end. This one is perhaps the most tragic of all. Let's watch a master sculptor who's attempting to permanently freeze the beautiful, dynamic cycle of life. He's trying to replace Verden, which is the natural, dynamic cycle of continuous development and becoming, with a single perfect gestalt, a static form.
He's suppressing all negation, trying to permanently scratch perfection into the world. But by refusing to accept that destruction and change are vital for new life, he's actually providing the very ink that dictates his own shadow.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate consequence of terminal consumption. A vibrant, acidic, green fire erupts right from his carving tools. This entity doesn't clear a path for the future, it just turns the entire workshop into chaotic formlessness. It absorbs the life force of human cultivation straight into its glowing green solar plexus, ensuring that no noble ambition can ever rise again from the flattened earth.
So where does this all lead? It leads us to the Faust book Übermensch, the perfection of the descent.
These three fables, the monk, the citadel, and the sculptor, they all point to the ultimate identity of this entity, the Faustbuch Übermensch. It's a violent inversion of Nietzsche's upward drive. Let's break down the aphoristic principles of this terminal script. This demon represents the total culmination of failed striving. It achieves the ultimate victory of gravity by doing a few key things. First, it devours all Gestalt to feed formlessness. Second, it replaces that beautiful cycle of Werden with a terminal void. Third, it physically empties human vessels of their spirit. And honestly, most terrifyingly, it is fueled entirely by the individual's own repressed vitality. The more you deny your nature to build rigid character, the more power you give the shadow to dictate your downfall.
And that is the true horror of the Inkblot demon. Those black, writhing, anchor-like tentacles are grounded entirely in the living ink of your own repressed human chaos. Moral structures do not erase your internal drives. They merely suppress them. They turn unwritten soul drives into a state of nihilistic self-loathing, where the repressed spirit acts as its own executioner. You literally build the crushing tyrant out of your own shattered metal and spilled blood.
So, as I sit up here on this jagged peak, watching humanity's masterpiece of self-destruction play out, I want to leave you with this to ponder. What rigid virtues are you violently scraping into your soul right now? And what dark, devouring shadow is just waiting to drink the ink?